Good morning and welcome to Race Industry Now, the weekly webinar series from ePortrait, presented to you by ARP, Performance Plus Global Logistics, Ferrea, Peak, Quarer, and Fifth Third Bank Motorsports. I am Francisque Savignan, the founder and CEO of ePortrait, the racing industry, every minute, every day. This is episode 464, and we're going to be talking with Fluidampr. With me this morning are Judy Kidd, the co-founder of ePortrait, and our superstar host, three-time NASCAR Cross Chief Champion, Mr. Jeff Hammond. Judy?
Thank you, Francisque, and thank you everyone for joining today. It's a little different week for me. I'm out in Chicago at the IMTS Machinery Show, seeing some of our suppliers and friends like Sonnen, MSC, Gray Mills, Hammond Roto, Brukers. So it's nice to see them. And I'm going to go back there after this webinar. And I have to say, happy birthday, Jeff Hammond. On to you, Jeff.
Oh,
Happy birthday,
thank you very
Jeff.
much. I appreciate that, gang. Around my shop, folks, you don't know, I'm a general manager of a truck team with Spencer Boyd, Freedom Racing, and those rascals, they were always picking on me because of the number of years I've been involved in the sport. And when I first started, well, Spencer started calling me 138. He said, I've been around so long, been 138 years. So they gave me a cake on my birthday, which was yesterday. Had 139 on it. So we're continuing to roll on down the line, you might say. And I was sitting there listening about where this is 400 and what now?
464.
464.
And all of a sudden my wheels started burning. It's like, I wonder if I'll be able to do number 500. So I guess numbers are catching up with us, folks. But the cool thing about today, with Fluidampr coming on, is they don't want anything catching up with you, and they do an excellent job of taking all the shake out of what's shaking usually when you crank one of these big old engines up and start making a lot of power. I've been around a long time, and I know their product is it speaks for itself. But today we're lucky enough to be able to be joined by some folks that are truly experts in their field. And morning, gentlemen, how are we doing?
Hey, good morning. Good morning.
Well, Paul and Nick, I mean, the thing is, let's just go ahead and get down to business here and tell us what's been going on in your world. I mean, I think that each time that we've had opportunity to speak, you've got something new and in a product then in my world would think, okay, once you get to the best of the best, you don't need to work on it. But that's not the case, is it?
Well, we're always looking for the next thing. Just we try to stay ahead and keep developing the best amber we can and get it out to everybody. In the case of what we're going to talk about here, Paul reached out to us in early of 22, I believe. And I answered the phone and we started talking and started hyping up the Godzilla engine, and heard a little bit about it. We knew some stuff about it, but we hadn't actually thought about a damper at the time for it, just being a new engine. Didn't really know anybody was actually building them up and whatnot. And here we got Paul from Paul's High Performance making big power out of the gate with them.
But the thing is, guys, it's like we hear about fluid dampener, but why fluid dampener over everything else? I mean, we who have been around automotive stuff, for a long period of time, understands there's other options. Why fluid dampener in a situation like this? Why do you need to go with your product rather than just, putting something else on there? I mean, bring us in, tell us the details of this. I mean, I guarantee you, they didn't just call and say, you guys had it on the shelf waiting on them. You had to work on it.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think our first fluid dampener, Nick, wasn't it? I think 99 or 2000, I think, is when we first used one of your dampeners. I think it's still on that engine actually in the back, but we knew that harmonics and vibration, on a crankshaft, which is, we know that they vibrate. And so we wanted, number one, the safety part of it. It has to be SFI approved, what we were doing,
the amount of power we were putting through it, we knew that we needed a dampener. And I remember you guys from way back, and I thought, you know what, it's a new product. Let's get together, see if we can develop something together for this engine that's, you know, SFI approved, and that we can work, and that, you know, we know that works. And you guys knocked out of the park. I think from start. Do you remember how many months it was? Probably
I want to
it wasn't
say,
long when we had a prototype in our hand. I do remember that. I was like, oh, your dampener showed up today.
yeah, I want to say we start well, like the first initial calls and everything were like early February or sometime in
Yeah,
February. And then you sent us an OE one for us to look at and get some specs and measure and everything. So we were able to get it through engineering fairly quick. But I want to say maybe like 6-8 months, if that. Like it was a pretty good quick turnaround time. Enough that we actually had the engine at our PRI booth that year, wasn't it?
that's right. December. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
We did.
So what's the first thing when you start talking about putting a dampener on an engine like Godzilla? I mean, how many horsepower are we talking about? And then do you look at horsepower? Do you look at the torque factor? I mean, how do you start? What's the first step on getting the right combination to make this thing successful?
I'm not, Paul, you remember do you know how much that engine is factory?
Yeah, it's 435 and 510 torque at 5200 or 5500. That's all they ever rev to stock.
Yeah. So the factory damper that was on that engine, there was two actual versions of it. There was like a low power and then a higher power. So there was two different dampers available, if I'm not mistaken,
That's
right?
right.
'Cause you had sent us the
Yes.
higher power damper,
Yeah.
the larger displacement or whatever it was, that one. Um, but we what your factory damper is very narrow band, and they build them really just for the specific power that the engine's making. So at 400 to 500 horsepower, you know, that damper is going to live there. I know, Paul, you were shooting for 1,000 horse or whatever on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. 1200.
1,200, yeah. So that damper was not going to work right out of the gate. So we just we did what we do best, and we took the information given to us. Engineers went and did their thing with it, did all the measurements and everything that we needed. Um, they tuned it in real good, and then we sent it to Paul, and we did test and verify it. And I'm not sure how much horsepower that engine was making, but it's on their CME race team Cobra Jet race car, and that's a nitrous car, so they're 1,200 horse and just going at it with it, and the damper's living there beautifully.
Well, see now you make me want to ask a couple more questions off of that, because that's really where I was wanting to go. And when I asked you about, is it the torque or the horsepower? And then you talk about having two different ones coming stock from the factory. Tell me, number one, what would have happened if you'd have left that stock dampener on there? What could you have expected to come from that?
Well, not only with the damper, as it being built for a specific frequency, specific power, when you start adding power and everything to it, that damper is going to overwork. It's not going to give you the engine protection that it's supposed to, that it's tuned for, and it'll actually wear out and go bad faster. But not only that, it's going to cause damage to like your main bearings and timing gear, the oil drive and everything, and especially on the new Godzilla engine being their first step back into a push rod engine. It has some timing chains and an oil chain there on the front case, and I know those were prone to failure. And I believe like Paul and them developed a better system to help with that. But not only that, but the damper itself allowing to be able to protect the engine's harmonics throughout the entire RPM range. And no matter what power levels it's set at, going with our damper over like a fixed OE damper is really the best option at that point.
Okay, you bring up some interesting, I think, discussion points, and Paul, jump in here, please. And you talk about, okay, it's going to start sending vibrations and not going to dampen the vibrations that go back through and affect bearings and timing chains and everything like that. So how quickly would something like that occur, guys? I mean, I know you know better, but I'm just trying to pin down, just trying to create a picture in people's heads about how important it is to get this right in the beginning. Because let's say this is a brand new engine. You run it how long before you could pull it back apart and start telling that it's doing this type of damage to not only that particular engine, but any engine is where I'm going with this. Is how quick can something be getting torn up, or pushing it over the edge in the inception of a brand new engine?
Well, where we're going with power, like Nick said, the OE engine is great for what it is, but if you think about it, those rear tires are hooked to the drive shaft, tranny, the clutch or flywheel, and then the crank, and then the dampener. So at the end of all that is this dampener. So this poor thing has got to live out at the end of the crankshaft, which can be 4 to 6 inches sticking out on the end. So if you think about your arm being way out there, and then it's spinning around, and then it's starting to go out of balance or out of frequency. Really, it's frequency related, and they're only pressed on with a rubber, like a rubber type material. So that material starts to get hot, and it starts to weaken, and then it starts to move around. And then once it starts to move around, it can come apart. That dampener, I think, is almost 20 pounds. So if you think about a 20-pound weight spinning around at 7,000, 7,500 RPM, which, your guys' race cars go way higher than that, but things can happen really fast. And then that wear, that just transfers all the way back to the rear end if you want to take and, go into that. But that's one. And then two, like I was saying about the safety, if these things are not safe, just like our flywheel is SFI approved, the torque converter, transmission, the rear end, the drive shaft, those are all SFI approved pieces, which, there's a standard for that. And safety. But you would see wear on the engine. I think if we did run some higher RPM, but we knew right away when we took that first engine apart, because we were spraying it with, we were making 700, 800 horsepower, and we could see when we would take it apart or we had a failure, you could see definitely in the bearings, the pistons, the ring, you could see on the crankshaft that there was definitely odd wear marks. We did an autopsy on it, and you could see that things were moving around. And that particular dampener also is a press fit, so there's no keyway. A lot of the performance engines, way back were always keyed. Now everything is pressed on because it's neutral balance. It doesn't matter where it goes. You can put that dampener on any way you want. So that's the other thing with the fluid dampener. When you put it on, it doesn't matter where it goes. You just stick it on, and boom, it balances right out, and it's ready to go as soon as it runs.
So with that being said, Nick, and again, Paul was referring to, you get that vibration. It starts at the front, but when it goes the full length of the engine, it continues right on down the powertrain, correct? And so you're really trying to dampen this thing so that when it transfers in through the transmission, we all know about the thrust bearings and stuff that are in the back of the engine, but going all the way back through, it puts a big strain on the entire drivetrain from front to back. So when you're getting this, when you're working with your product, and all of a sudden you've been challenged with not only low RPM but also high RPM and a lot of horsepower, how do you derive it? How much wider? How much? I'm assuming you make the custom build this fluid dampener to each application, and in particular with the Godzilla deal. How much did you have to, were you able to go to something you already had started or had one on the shelf to go from? Or did you have to redesign and build something specific just for that 7.3?
Also, all of our dampers are built specific for their engine. There's just different tuning, different frequencies. So we use different materials in them. So depending on, like, your standard damper would be a steel housing with a steel inertia ring, and then the silicone inside of that. Um, the but we do have some that have different materials in them, aluminum and brass and whatnot. But the factory damper, if I believe it's correctly, it has the inertia ring on the Godzilla one sticks out quite far past where the belts are. So that's how they achieved their tuning for whatever frequencies they were targeting. We were actually able to condense the package with that not sticking out. So our damper, it basically just passed where the outer belt rides. That's the face of the damper at that point. So we actually brought the damper in maybe 2 inches or so.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
so that gives them a little bit of space up front. But we're able to do that with different materials, different grade thicknesses of silicone. So when we, like I said, we got the initial damper in from Paul. Our engineers go through and they get all the specs and measurements and everything off of it, and then we're able to, they are able to dial in the tuning and frequency, like get it like a base level, and then we can test it and then fine tune it from there. So it's working at its best performance, peak performance there throughout the entire RPM range. So each damper is basically start from scratch. We don't have like a, a one basic generic ring or anything that we go off of and just kind of, oh, it'll fit this, it'll fit that. So each one is designed custom for each engine.
So Paul, you and Nick both have referred to frequency. How do you determine the frequency? I mean, this is something I'm not really very versed in. I understand it exists, but how do you measure that? I mean, what part of the process do you start determining what a frequency needs to be ranged or get you the information that Nick needs to come up with the right balance, or how do you achieve that?
There is an encoder that can go on the end of the drive shaft or crankshaft, and you can run it at various RPMs, and that will measure the frequency. And from that frequency and the load that's put on it, high torque, high RPM, and in between there, you can get the measurements of what this frequency is. This machine, device, it's very, the data is really long. Even in 1 second, it's several feet long. So it can actually measure just the minute part of the frequency of the crankshaft, what is bending, what is the harmonics that's doing it. And from that, then you can develop, okay, this is where we need to go. Of course, there's a lot of engineering in that, and there's a lot of science. This is not just, hey, it's pretty close, I don't feel anything. Some of this, you have no idea that it's going on. It's such, it's very infinite, and it takes a long time to get data. I think we ran, what was that, Nick? Almost 100 hours, I believe. No, that was something else, but it did a whole complete cycle, and I think it was 30 or 35 hours that this thing ran to get this data. And then it has to be, compiled. So that took, what, 3-4 weeks just to compile the data of what this frequency is. And then they had to go back to their engineering team. Okay, these are the frequencies we see. This is what we can do to change. This is where it should be, in this range. You think about it, from an engine at idle all the way to 7,500 RPM, that's a big range. And so you have to target exactly where is the worst and what should it be. And this is one of the things that about the fluid dampener thing, that a lot of people think, we're the racing guys, right? We're out racing, but they do airplanes and track. They have a dampener. Nick can probably go down the list a little bit, but the data that you have for that to get it there is a lot of work.
Yeah, it's definitely not it's definitely not a open up a book and get it right out of there. You know, your factory engine, your stock engine from the OE has its natural frequency, and they have it, and that's what that damper targets. So if, you know, I'll just make up some numbers. We'll say 150 hertz, and then the stock damper may have a plus or minus of 50 hertz to cover that band. Now, Paul puts a big shot of nitrous in it and cranks that engine really high up because now he wants to make 1200 plus horsepower. That stock damper, that stock frequency is no longer there. It may be you know, 250 now, and so that damper is really overworking. And then the beauty of our damper, like I said before, it has the ability to essentially self-tune in real time to the harmonics of the engine. So it's optimized for that specific engine, that specific displacement, and then being the inertia ring sitting in the bed of silicone and being able to self-tune, so it's able to cover that throughout the RPM sweep. So from an idle or standing at the line to full throttle, well, everywhere in between that RPM sweep, and then for the few seconds that the racers are going down the track, that it's always tuning, so that damper is always working, and it turns the torsional vibration into heat and dissipates it out of the cover itself. And as Paul and you, Jeff, said before, that damper is connected to the entire driveline, so you're getting all kinds of feedback through that whole entire driveline system. So our damper, its job is for torsional vibration, but it does help throughout the entire drive line. We've had plenty of people say that that they can feel it in the shifter or in the pedals, so different things like that. And we actually installed one of the Godzilla dampers after they were in full out production. We put one on a truck, and the owner of the truck said that he actually used to feel a vibration in the pedals from the fact it's a stock engine, factory power, nothing's done to it. And we put our damper on it, and he said that is completely gone now. So just even on a stock engine, you're able to feel a difference with that Godzilla engine by using our damper.
When you tell me something like that, I'm not surprised, because again, the main focus of a fluid dampener is it's almost like you say, it tunes itself, or it adapts to whatever it needs to. I mean, it's almost like it's black magic, put it that way. It's almost like it's black magic, because you would think, and when I started looking at them, it's like, how does this thing work? And the guys explained to me, what's going on, but it's all about the fluid inside the dampener that helps to, let's just say hypothetically, it's at 50 hertz and it's doing this. Well, you put one of yours on, and all of a sudden it's absorbing that energy and not transferring it through the rest of the vehicle. Because a lot of people, they don't appreciate, I don't think, enough of how it's mounted in the vehicle can also influence what you feel and what you miss. And I mean, and again, the whole entire drivetrain, when you have something, even if the engine's perfect, there's something in behind there in the transmission, the drive shaft itself, and the rear gear can also come back forward just as easy as it can be transferred back.
That's right.
So there's a lot that goes on there. And I say it again, it's black magic, but it's mind blowing to understand how quickly this piece can either help or destroy a work of art when somebody builds a really, bad butt engine, you might say, and they don't get the right dampener on the darn thing, and how important it can be.
Yeah, and it's definitely a critical piece. I always say it's not the coolest thing. It's not big fancy shiny turbos or a crazy nitrous setup or anything like that, but it's that foundation of that engine, and it is extremely crucial to have. And I know Paul hit us up pretty early on with that, so they obviously knew that there was an issue right out of the gate, and they weren't going to have that, because they have plans and goals to go faster and And
Mhm.
I believe you're still the #1 Godzilla engine out there, right? In the
That's
racetrack.
right. Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's right.
so he knew right away that he needed to have the best of the best, and we appreciate him contacting us and working with us. It's been a great relationship.
Yeah, we've
Well, I'm
had some
glad
fun
of
along the
that.
way.
Yeah. Hey guys, we got some of our participants and everything are got questions for you. So Matt Rice would like to say, Rice, I think I'm saying that correctly. I noticed it in the bearings versus using a stock dampener and higher than stock, horsepower levels. So there it is, proofs in the pudding, the guys out there that are, using your product that not on something that's, 1,000 horsepower, but paying enough attention to their bearings and whatever horsepower they're running at, they realize they need to have your fluid dampener on there. Tim Hillard also said, if you were to design a short stroke, higher RPM, 10,000 plus five Godzilla, see what the rest of this is. Hang on, bear me. Not that good sometime with computers. Um, Godzilla, would a different fluid dampener design be required, diameter and material, as far as that goes, Nick? But I pretty much you answered the question earlier, but I'd like to hear it from you.
So all the dampers are SFI certified, so they're spun up to 12,500 RPM, and they do
Mhm.
multiple tests for over an hour. So every damper is built to handle that power. Um, the only way to truly know is to hook up our equipment back up on the engine and see at higher RPMs like that level. We don't have too many engines that are, I assume 10,500 RPM is what they were referring to.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know that we've ever tested anything that high, but the damper's ability to tune at all RPM should have that covered, no problem. It may not be optimal for that super high RPM peak, but if you're taking a Godzilla engine that high, that hard, I would say good luck. And I would definitely would like to say use our damper just because it has that ability. But we also have built into that damper a hardened hub and different design aspects to basically be able to handle that kind of abuse and power. Because um, you never know what kind of power level somebody's going to get. I know, Paul will probably be pushing that Godzilla much, much higher and harder in the near future.
Mhm.
And, until they find the next weak point, we just try to stay ahead of the game.
Paul, go ahead and say what you were going to say. I think I've reading your mind, because if you don't say it, I'm gonna say it. Paul was being, I mean, Nick was being really kind about what he really wanted to say about you spinning up that high.
Yeah, to get there, one, you're not going to hold it at 10,500. Just like, remember, the NASCAR, you don't hold it at 9,800 the whole way. There's just no way. So the amount of time is going to be very, very short that it's at 10,500. So I don't see, you know, uh, a real problem with that. Holding it there. Now, if you're going to run out to Bonneville, well, then you're going to have a whole different deal. That's like a whole other deal. But for most street stuff and drag racing, I think I don't see a problem with it. We have gone past the 75. We've gone 8,400, and but we don't. That's not our goal. We know that we need other things to go along with that. We're working with a company for a crankshaft deal and lighter rods, lighter pit. It's all got to be matched together. As you know, one part equals you got to change everything. You can't just change one thing and expect it's going to fix all of it. It's a package deal. Everything is got to be designed and engineered together for one one goal. So what is that going to be? It's all got to be matched and it's all got to be together. And I was going to mention too, we have almost 130 passes on this, and all we've done is change oil and spark plugs. We've done the oil analysis. We've checked it over. Our goal was 100 passes, but we're not quite to our next step for our next engine, and we're running a race series. So, points are important. We're still seventh in points out of 139 cars. So it's not as good as we wanted to be, but hey, we're in the top 10, and you know how it is, Jeff. Top 10, sometimes it's a tough goal to get there. We've gone to 8 races. We've been #1 qualifier. We've runnered up. So the car and the engine is staying together. And part of that is, you got to believe it's got to be the dampener. We're running pretty much stock stuff, stock Ford bearings, stock crankshaft to their specs. Yes, we have a good rod and piston combo, and we've got the right camshaft and the right valve springs and keepers and retainers. And can we twist it more? Can we twist it harder? Yeah, but I wanted to see some longevity out of this because not everybody has a race car that you can go spend 30 grand on an engine and then hurt it or go bad. I wanted to see durability above all. I want to see what this thing can do, how it can handle. It's a truck engine, of course, so they're made very good. The composite of the material for the crank, and it's a forged crank, and the material for the block. It's all really good, durable stuff. They want that thing to go 300, 400,000 miles, and that's what it's designed for. But um, we want to make sure that it's good and safe for everything. So it's also testing for these guys. We want to make sure that it's all good and it stay together and everything is fine. We measure when that car, just like the old, your guys' race cars, you get them back to the shop, they're power washed, cleaned up, and every nut and bolt's either taken off, checked over, and we're like scratching our heads because we've been racing a long time. And to get a car that says change oil and spark plugs is pretty nice, just to check the thing over and make sure the torque specs are good and everything is right there. It's kind of nice, actually. We're a little bit spoiled just to come home, clean it, check the thing over, and it's good, and we're ready to go race again. That's and some of these events, we're entering 2 to 3 classes, so sometimes we're getting 15 to 18 hits out of that car in one weekend. That's quite a bit of beating up.
Well, I think here again, it continues to tell the true black magic that I keep referring to within the fluid dampener. It's doing a really great job. But the thing is, the smile on your face, and I think I hear it in Nick's voice, is every time you give him an update from the weekend before, and knowing you're adding miles to it, well, that's just adding to the legacy of what fluid dampener is all
That's
about,
right.
and is that you're keeping everything within the parameters, and the endurance factor can be just equally as satisfying. Because to me, Paul, I see a smile on your face that tells me you're having fun.
There
There's
you
no
go.
fun in having a dog on pull pistons or crankshafts, or you think, oh, we got to get another block, set of heads. It's basically we got to start over. Uh, there is a limit on a lot of stuff, but with the way you're approaching it, with oil samples and checking everything you're checking and plugs, it tells you that that 7.5 Godzilla is pretty happy with what you're feeding it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really incredible. The thing for you, Nick, we hear about the longevity in this situation here. Is there a point of passes and miles that you, as a manufacturer, do you want that fluid dampener piece taken off and re-examined, or is there any way that you guys are testing or keeping up to see if there's something changing within it? I mean, it shouldn't be, but where do you get as far as knowing it's time to put this fluid dampener up on the shelf and put a new one on it?
Yeah, so with the way our product is built, it's basically built to last the life of the engine. So
Okay.
it doesn't go bad, it doesn't wear out. In a case like this, like we had a dealer, or not a dealer, a racer. We were trying to think of his name this past weekend at the show we were at. But it's a big block Chevy and drag race car. Damper's been on since the mid 80s, and he sent it here a few years back because the car had been sitting for a little bit and he wanted to get back into it. They were going to do some stuff with it. And the damper, after countless passes for a couple decades, that damper tested exactly as one that came off the shelf or off the line today. So that's a really great testament for that. Yeah, power levels, horsepower is a lot higher these days. You're able to achieve a few hundred more horsepower with a lot more ease these days than back in the day. So I don't see a need to say, hey, Paul, send me that damper back, unless he said like he was chewing up bearings or something like that. Then we may say, well, let's take a look at it. But we try to nail the tuning and everything right out of the gate. So I like to always say we try to overbuild them, overprotect, so that when these guys are out there and when Paul calls me and says, hey, we're at 1,500 horse, what do you think? Let her eat, like keep it going, like there, no problem. And when he calls me and says, hey, we're at 2,000 horse, and I tell him, you're crazy, but keep it going, like that's what we try to work with everybody. We try to work with these guys and make the best absolute product out there.
So, Paul, what do you think? I mean, is there going to be a point in time that you're going to say, we need to take it apart and look at it? I mean, are you coming up on the end of the season and are you thinking about it's time to do a little autopsy and see exactly where everything is? And if it comes back the way that you're, hopefully it will, it's to continue to perform like it is, would it be just a matter of let's clean it out and put it right back together and run another year?
Yeah, our finals are coming up in Bowling Green, Kentucky in a couple of weeks. And we'd like to move up in points a little bit there, but when we come back, that's the plan. Pull it apart, look it over. We're actually, this is 446 cubic inches. Our goal was to try and do a 500 cubic inch, a little bit higher RPM package. So Nick's already, we were here a few weeks ago and we were talking, and so I have another dampener, and we're going to put that on. We'll send this back. I I see no problem with sticking it back on that engine that we're currently working on. So, but everybody, we can do the autopsy on it, check the thing over, make sure it's all good, and just keep right on moving forward. We see no issues, no problems with anything. Yeah, just wipe the dust off of it, check it out, put it back on, let it go again.
Nick, this is one of those situations where it's almost like, why doesn't, I mean, what my whole thing is, I can't believe that manufacturers that have anything to do with horsepower, any kind of performance product, would not be coming to Fluid Dampener wanting those dampeners put on their even production line stuff. But I'm just talking about high end, like the Corvettes or the Camaros or something like that. That you're going to have a little bit more up into it than your normal, Chevrolet Caprice that's running up and down the highway. I can understand that, but I'm a little bit surprised that a lot of the people that know about the longevity of this and the performance of like you've gotten, haven't come to you guys and say, hey, look, we want to start doing this all the way through our, at Ford, for example, we want to put this on our Mustangs and on this and our, high performance trucks and everything. So agree to disagree?
We actually do work with a number of OEs. A lot of it comes down to price point of the damper. Again, I'm just going to make up numbers, but your factory OE damper, it's built by the lowest bidder. So they may get that damper for $50 each, whereas like ours on an OE level is going to be considerably higher. So that's one part of it. But there are a number of engines that we do OE work with. Some here stateside, a lot overseas in the hypercars and supercars. Them exotic imports. We are the OE damper on them. And it's we do stuff with the military engine builders for the military projects. So like a lot of those, well, actually every one of that one specific vehicle has our damper on it. So yeah, I mean, we definitely do a lot. It'd be nice if more came, because me as a vehicle owner myself, I would rather have an engine that's built for longevity and reliability than by the lowest bidder. But that's just me. Like I would pay a little bit more to have that like peace of mind. But I run I run our product too. Like I'd much rather have an engine that I don't have to worry about going bad or wearing out. sooner than later. Nothing's cheap these days. So if I can put our product on an engine and make my engine last that much better, and it does make it run smoother and perform better, and it does free up horsepower and torque. Those are like little benefits of the damper because the engine's running smoother. It's not fighting itself as much. So, you're going to get better fuel mileage and everything like that. Every engine's going to be different, but I mean, it does happen. So, it's just one of those things, you try to, I guess you can shout it from the rooftops as best you can, but it's the word of mouth thing. Like Paul has been a great, essentially a salesman for us because he's always telling people how great it works, and things like that are huge for us.
Well, again, Paul, you sitting there with a smile on your face as you're telling me the story about Godzilla, and you're at 7.3 doing like it's doing. I can tell it's a sense of pride right now that you guys have built something that you're able to have fun with, and at the same time, I think you might be, if you're being honest, you might be a little bit surprised it's been this good.
Nick.
Well, I'm surprised that it's been that good. Well, I mean, Ford hasn't had a push rod engine in how many years, Paul? 20 years?
Yeah, long time.
So, like, when I heard that engine was coming out, I was pretty stoked to see. I mean, I was raised on 80s engines, those older engines. So, like, carburetors and things like that. And then, now everything kind of went modular with Ford for such a long time. And so I was really interested to see like how much power they could get out of these things. And Paul's been around Fords for forever, as long as, I mean, you've been into that for quite a long time. You're the guru of it. Them things. So to pick that platform and go to town, I had a feeling that we were going to do okay with it. But it's like every engine, though. A new engine comes out, and you never know. You're going to find a weak point eventually. And I think the Godzilla's been pretty good overall, though. So the damper just complementing the rest of the engine, I think that's been a really good win.
Hey, real quick, Nick, Tim wanted to know, what is a press spec on your deal?
Plus or minus 5/10.
510. There you go, Tim. 510, right? All right, guys, I see we must be running up against the clock here. I've enjoyed having you on. And Paul, thank you very much for sharing your side of it from the competitive part of it. And Nick, thank you for everything you and Fluidampr are doing for the industry overall and continued success, and which I know it will be. Ever since I saw this thing and people I've talked to, I mean, it's kind of like it's one of those necessary things. If you understand what horsepower and torque do to the engines, you need a fluid dampener on that son of a gun.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate. Oh, yep. No, go ahead, Nick.
No, I just want to thank you, Jeff, for having us and hosting us, and thank you, Paul, for coming on. Happy birthday, Jeff.
Thank you, guys.
But we definitely appreciate it. We love coming on and love supporting you guys. You guys are do great for us too.
Yeah, and happy birthday, Jeff. I've seen you around a long time, followed you along for a little bit. I like all kinds of racing. So, but yeah, you did good. You had a great career, and it's a great platform for you. I appreciate Francis on the e-power trade deal and going forward with that. And Nick, thanks for helping us out and supporting us, and thanks for that tent too, by the way. We appreciate that. But no, everybody have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. Great session. Thank you very much. So this webinar has been recorded. It will be posted later on the ePortrait platform, distributed through our newsletter and social media channels. In the meantime, we pushed fluid dampers back on the homepage of ePortrait. So for more information and updates, please visit ePortrait.com. Next webinar will be with lithium batteries. Thank you again, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
ePortrait is a digital platform that we've created basically to make life easier in the business community of auto racing.
e-part trade, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier.
When you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information, and then from there it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
E-part trade really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
Land speed record holder George Poteet's Speed Demon rocketed 481 miles per hour at the Bonneville Salt Flats. You don't go that fast without ARP fasteners.
There is no way that we could go the speed that we've gone, the number of times we've gone, with a lesser quality bolt than ARP supplies to us. And we absolutely wouldn't be where we were today if it weren't for ARP.
When failure is not an option, it's ARP-bolts.com.
We're Performance Plus Global Logistics. Our team of dedicated performance industry and logistics experts get valuable cars and components to the track on time in top condition. We provide expedited logistics solutions for the performance industry using direct routes instead of deferred options, and communicate all necessary information to the appropriate resources to meet regulations and ensure a smooth transit and secure delivery, both domestically and internationally. And we exceed customer expectations by providing best-in-class service with an efficient and cost-effective system in place. Contact us today to book your next shipment.
You work as hard as your truck, and you have no time for downtime. That's why more truck owners trust Blue Def, America's #1 diesel exhaust fluid brand. Each batch is guaranteed pure, so you can avoid costly repairs caused by inferior DEF. Demand America's best for your truck. Blue Def and Blue Def Platinum. Put trust in your truck.
With roots in the Midwest that date back well before the Model T, Fifth Third Bank has a long history of serving the needs of automotive companies. While much has changed over the years, our passion for helping businesses put cars on the road and on the track has not. Today, we are more committed than ever as a member of SEMA, a founding member of PRI, and a sponsor of multiple race teams across several racing series.
For over a decade, Fifth Third Bank has been a staunch supporter of our industry and a great partner for many companies in the motorsports field.
Our business has been growing extremely fast, and really we could not be where we are today without Fifth Third. They provided amazing strategic advice, the capital we need to support our phases of growth.
They are true partners for me now, and what they do with their involvement in motorsports is untouched in this community.
Where can we take your business? Fifth Third Bank.
Where will you find Ferrea racing components, circle track, drag racing, and any top race shop? In every form of motorsports competition, our valves and valve train components deliver race-proven design and technology. And we've brought that same performance to our street applications as well. We're backed by 5 decades of experience, an extensive range of off-the-shelf components, and our custom valve department has the fastest turnaround times in the industry. Ferrea Racing Components. Stand with us or race against us.
When it comes to pushing the limits of performance, the pros know there's no room for compromise. At Crower Cams, we don't just engineer camshafts and valve train components, we redefine what power means. Since 1955, Crower Cams has been the name trusted by racers, engine builders, and gearheads around the globe. Whether you're building a street machine, a dragster, or a track car, Crower Cams provides the muscle you need to dominate. And with Crower, victory is within your reach.
Scribner Plastics has provided professional strength shipping containers to the automotive and performance industry for over 40 years. We have containers that will fit most any configuration of complete or partial engines and transmissions. Today we highlight part number 5148 cylinder head shipping and storage container. Base has double walled durable construction featuring a cinch strap with an abrasion sleeve that securely fits your small block, big block, and pro stock heads to the base at all times. Talk to your dealers and distributors about the shipping storage container for cylinder heads from Scribner Plastics, part number 5148.